appreciate it. It's great to be here. It's awesome to have an opportunity to brag a little bit about some of the things we've been able to achieve as a program, and pretty awesome on my about to start 19th season that we get to talk about, people going to the Olympics. I'm sure, like most of you, I was there too about a year plus ago. Like, is this thing going to happen? And we went through the whole process of trying to figure out which end was up back in March, April, May, and somehow we found a way to get here. And I think that's something that we talked about as a program early on. That we're not going to be, we're not going to just survive this thing. We're going to be that program that was going to find a way to thrive it, and that included certainly ACCs, NCAAs, and then the international stage. We did our job. We won ACCs for the first time on the men's side. Got to be top 5 at NCAAs again. NCAA champions, won a relay, but then ultimately when that was all over. The focus obviously shifted to now it's time to get people on the Olympic team. So we're very proud to have a number of our athletes that former athletes in some ways that have been part of our program that are training here. And I think that's the nature of our sport. If you follow a little bit of Nathan Adrian last week, and Nathan Adrian has been out of college for over 10 years and he's still training a cow. Right? So that's the nature of our sport. Katie Ledecky swam at Stanford. She's still training at Stanford. And I think that's a sign of having a good program where people want to stay and train in the system that we've built. So we're thrilled, honored to have a number of athletes, representing different countries, including Team USA, having the second opportunity that we got an athlete on Team USA. That's very special. Just the nature of our trials and the depth. That's just the reality of the depth of the U.S. It's pretty impressive. So very proud as a coach, and that might be one of your questions, the emotions of the trials. It is brutal. It is brutal. I'm not going to lie to you. It's the most intense meet. The highs of the highs and the lows are very low too. And you focus on the positive, and again, couldn't be more excited to be here and have an opportunity to brag a little bit about our program with you guys today.
Hey, Arthur, when Zach won his event, I remember, and it was captured on TV, you and him had a great embrace after he comes off the floor. But I'm wondering what your emotions were like in that race, because Nick, your son, was in that race. You look completely happy for Zach, but obviously in that race you're also a dad.
Yes. Full disclosure, I dreaded that moment for the last couple of years. I just saw the way they were both progressing that we hoped that we'd be in that position, or both of them would be in the Olympic trial final with a chance. And that's something that we've always talked about in our program. If you have a lane, you have a chance, and they both had lanes. And I think at that moment, you're right. It's something that I consider how I would handle. At the end of the day, the opportunity presented itself right after the race where Nick was done and he was coming closer to where we were. And I had an opportunity to have a son, dad moment there. And then to be able to just move on, go down the steps, and, here we are. Let's celebrate Zach. And I'll say I was very impressed with Nick, to be honest, that he was able to, in that moment, to kind of put his emotion aside. And I don't know if I would have done that, to be honest with you, that he was able to do that and just be the first guy to be there to greet Zach and to celebrate, And he said himself, he said, I was bummed. I saw my time. I was happy with my time. I was bummed I wasn't top 2. But then I saw that Zach won, and that was awesome. So I think it says a lot about the culture that we developed here. Not to say that that's an easy thing for Nick. It's something he's going to have to deal with for the next little bit here, maybe 3 years, until he has another opportunity. But it takes nothing away from, I think, the environment, the success, and really ultimately as a teammate to be happy for Zach, for his win.
So one of the things that Zach had a great speech afterwards about, chasing your dreams, on live television. As his coach, I don't know if you saw it or looking back on it. I mean, does that make you, even more so than the win and all that stuff, is to be able to kind of maybe have a teaching moment for a lot of people out there?
No, absolutely. I think his speech was definitely from the heart. And if you know anything about him and his family, that is who they are. I remember vividly when Zach and his mom was sitting in my office during the recruiting process that we talked about. I didn't make a promise that we were going to go to the Olympics, but we talked about providing the best possible opportunity for him to have a path for that. And she reminded me after the race, so we ran into each other, and she sought me out, and she reminded me of that conversation. So I think that's just being part of, you know, who they are as a family, the way he was brought up. You know, there's a fine line between being overconfident, maybe cocky, or just confident. And I think Zach teeters with that line a little bit. But you know, when he's leaving for the race, and we had a little final words there, you know, at that point, there's not much else I need to say to him on the race. He knows what he needs to do. We went over videos. He knew what he needed to do. We worked on a couple things. At that point, I see in his face the race is heavy, right? And he said that in a couple interviews, that he couldn't breathe, he couldn't sleep. His heart rate was, you know, he felt like his heart was beating really hard out of his chest. And we just tried to say a joke or two and calm things down a little bit. And as he's leaving, he kind of had a transformation moment from being nervous to he started walking away from the team area. And he just looked back and says, "Coach, next time you see me, I'm going to be a champion." Right? And as a coach, I'm like, just go do it. Don't talk about it. Just go do it. And he wasn't talking about everybody. It was just a conversation between, you know, our coaching staff and him. And I love that confidence, right? I think that's step one. You have to believe in yourself. And at that moment, as close of a race as that was, I have to believe that made a difference for him. You know, that belief that he wasn't going to let that go. He went with that mindset.
So was that the moment that he went from Bruce Wayne to Batman?
That 100%, right? There's a lot of moments like that. And I think that's something that he does really well. He's able to manage the emotion of the moment and kind of transform that into forward action. And I think, you know, that moment is a moment that he's been preparing for. It was the moment that we talked about going into the meet that, yeah, physically we're prepared, but you had to be emotionally prepared for that moment. In the midst of the lights and everything else, is still about executing your thing. And then at some point you throw it away and you find a way to get your hand on the wall, right? And that's what he did. So thank you. Appreciate that question.
In your experience,
Hey, Juice, let's get you on the microphone. Thanks, buddy.
well, thank you. In your experience, having that kind of confidence with athletes, why is that such an important thing for an athlete to have that kind of confidence in your point of view?
Well, you know, again, when you line up, especially in that setting, right? You're lining up at the Olympic trials finals. So you know all the 8 guys in there are talented. They all worked. You don't get to the Olympic trials in the 200 butterfly by chance. Like, those guys are workers, right? That's the nature of that event. So you line up in very much equal footing at that point. So really it comes down to, you know, certainly experience. We can talk about a lot of things, but knowing in your heart that you're going to have a chance. It's probably something that you can't teach, right? And you can't buy either at that moment. So I think it's part of many years of developing that. He probably would be the first one to tell you it wasn't always that way. But I think over time he's developed that. It's a skill. It's a skill where you can, and he's learned how to turn that on when it counts the most. And he's going to have a double switch coming up here for Tokyo because he's going to need it. He knows that, right? And the challenges that are upcoming to go against a heck of a field. So confidence is better. Having it is better than not having. I can tell you that much, you know. And it gives you a chance. That's for sure, right? And we always talk about this, that when you go to meets like that, high-level meets, certainly NCAA championships will be one of them, but Olympic trials, you don't walk through those doors of the building hoping that things are going to go your way. There's no hoping. There is no contemplation. You better come in knowing that you have a job to do and you're prepared to do it. And that's a decision, right? It's something that's kind of happens right here in the pool every single day. So awesome. Thanks for that question. Appreciate it.
How did the extra year affect everything for you guys? And as a coach, how do you broach that with them? Because on the one hand, they do get an extra year, but on the other hand, you got more people coming in because they had an extra year also to train. Yeah.
No, I think that's one of the things that you saw, right? You saw there were some discussions about changing of the guard. I don't know about that necessarily, but certainly there's some new faces in the U.S. national team. Lindsay Mintenko, our national team director, brought it up. it feels like we have so many rookies, but I think it's 4 more rookies than we've ever had, first timers. So it just feels differently because you have some new faces and some of the older names, traditional names, and Lochte and Adrian. Obviously, Phelps has retired, and in our case, Kelsey Dahlia, somebody who's been number 1 in the U.S. since 2015, and every year except 2021, and that was a bad year not to be number 1. Excuse me. Yeah, you're right. That year was complicated, and I think what it did for the people that were truly in the mix, as much as you talked about, certainly going to a trial situation that is nobody's spot. They're up for grabs. But there was a little bit of sense, like, I've been on the national team. I think all those guys felt like they had to defend something. And that's not a great place to be. In the world of athletics, as it is probably most endeavors in life, you don't want to feel like you're defending something. You want to be in attack mode, right? That's been Louisville swimming at its finest. We're just an aggressive team, and we work for it, and we want to get better and better. But we're not defending anything. And I think that certainly was a little bit heavier. You could see for all those returners, a lot of names that have been around for quite some time. And then to your point, it provided some new opportunities for young ones to develop, right? And what a difference 1 year makes. And also to consider is, not everybody had the same access. So you going into this, it's not an equal level playing field, right? Some people, maybe some states like Florida, they didn't shut down for 1 day, right? And this pool here was shut down for 3 months, right? From March through mid-June. And all of our swimmers, if you follow a little bit, Kelsey was trying to find a way in pools and, probably some, things that I can't even say publicly on some of the things these guys are doing to try to stay in the water. But that was a reality, right? So, it was a bit of a dichotomy. I think for some people coming into trials, it was almost like the end of a long road. And versus a lot of the young ones, it was just the beginning, So as much as we knew some of that was going to happen, it's again, from a performance standpoint, I feel like our people performed great. But the field got a little bit better in some areas, and I think that's good for Team USA. That's really good. That's the nature of our sport. We got to continue to evolve.
Arthur, it's such a unique situation. I mean, you're Team USA, but at the same time, when you look at that board, you have a lot of your kids that swim here that are also going to be in the Olympics representing other countries. How do you handle that?
Well, I love it, right? I think, again, while we're sitting right here, we're U of L first and foremost, and then, when I get an opportunity to go and represent, Team USA like I've had, then you're there with a job to do, right? And that was probably one of the hardest things back in 2015 that really kind of encapsulates your question. I was coaching Team USA at Pan American Games, and João de Luca, competing for Brazil, was, the main rival against the guys that I was coaching, the 2 Americans that I was coaching, and they were asking me about what's his strategy, what is he gonna do, and the one thing that was discussed is, obviously he's our guy, but I couldn't really do anything with him during the meet. So I had some people helping me, working kind of the liaison. And then when he won, the camera came right on me, and I was just still as a statue. I didn't move because I didn't want to celebrate. I was so happy for him. But at that moment, I'm Team USA coach, and our guys got beat, right? So it's really about, you got to respond to the moment, right? And I think I've learned that. I've probably gotten better at that as I've gotten older, a little more experience. But it's always a source of pride, and when our U of L swimmers will line up, our entire group that's here, everybody's going to be cheering for them regardless, right? And I think that says a lot, again, about the environment, the culture, the team environment that we've built here.
As a father, how awesome, though, was it to see your son in the pool competing in the Olympic trials?
Yeah. Special, right? Special. And I think, again, on that side, back in 2016, he didn't have the cut for that event. I remember he was chasing a little bit. He got to go and swim a couple of different events, but it was just part of the experience. So to, in this case, 5 years, to come back and be a contender, to have a legitimate chance, right? It's not just he had a pie in the sky chance. He had a real chance. I think as a dad, it's pretty special. So, it's a line that if you ask him, we've played with a little bit, coach, dad, athlete. That relationship, I think to his credit, he's gotten, he's learned how to manage that. My role never changed. I'm still his dad, and I'm still the head coach. So I'm still in the same seat, if you will, but he had to adjust to it a little bit. And I think to his credit, even at that moment, he understood that he was disappointed for himself, but he was happy for his teammate, and he was happy for me too, in the sense that, hey, this is important for the program. He understood how important it is for our program, for me personally, and the work that we put forth here. To put somebody on the U.S. Olympic team is always special. So he's become incredibly mature, and hopefully, as some have said, he's young in his career. Time will tell. It's one thing at a time, But I think you have another shot. You have another shot. Thank you.
Anything else for Coach? Okay, we're going to hand it over to the guys.
Thanks, guys. Truly appreciate it.